I'm your co-host, Kenny Bhullar.
I'ma clap the trappers, cause y'all in the for them actors.
Welcome on the Second Floor Podcast.
I've been rolling around with all my goons and all my savages. I just want the
We would have dreamt of something like this, and here it is.
It's Ray Ray with the heaters, got the track sounding immaculate.
Looking kinda dapper, but it be chillin', this don't matter about my business, so I spit.
What is going on, Second Floor Podcast? We are back with our unofficial sponsor, San Pellegrino.
That's nice. I want one. Where's mine, dog?
Pinky's out. I got you one next time. See, the sponsor is going to send us 2 bottles next time.
That's
and
right.
We'll get one for Qashus. And when Kenny decides to join us as well, he's running a little bit late today, so we decided to get started. But he'll be here in a bit, and we'll roll right into it. We got some interesting, controversial topics as per usual. So we were sitting down. Kenny was talking about, man, I hate how artists get blamed for Satanism in the industry, or they get blamed for whatever it might be that people from the outside are portraying towards them. So I guess the question is there actually Satanism in the industry? Is there actually demonic things that these guys are doing or not?
Yeah. I mean, I think you and I are on the same page about this. I mean, we see a lot of references to Satanism. There's a lot, like, I mean, I rap, so I know I see a lot of music videos, and I watch like Lil Nas X. You go to his stuff, and like, there's demons and blood.
Yeah, he's getting. I can't even say this shit on camera. Man's getting his back taken out by the devil. Right?
Yeah.
In a music video.
Yeah.
And I guess like the question is, there's creative artistic expression.
Yeah.
But then where's the line where it's just
Where's
too
the
much?
limit?
Right? Like
Yeah.
there's certain things, like for example, Sam Smith's Unholy.
Yep.
That's one of those things that, like, from a visual aspect alone, say there's no music, you're not even listening to any of it.
Yeah.
All I see is the devil.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's hard to ignore a lot of these things. And it's funny because, like, when you see so many different coincidences, like at the start, you're like, you know, maybe these guys do that, and maybe it's just them. People are trying to make too much out of something small. But then when you see like blatant visual programming, right?
Yeah.
And I've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Either you're programming yourself or you're being programmed.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm looking at this shit like, is somebody trying to program me? And when I see the consistency of a lot of these artists having the same thing, it draws me off. It puts me off because I understand that there's forces in this world that we might not understand, and I'm not willing to partake. And I think the hard part is like, if you aren't, maybe it's harder if you're not religious, right? Because it's easier to not believe in the devil.
You mean it's easier?
Huh?
You mean it's easier if you're not religious?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's not what I said.
I think you said it's harder if you're not.
Oh yeah, it's easier if you're not religious because you don't believe in the devil.
Yeah.
So, or you don't believe in the God. So then, on the flip side, there is no devil.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel like too, like, you know, when we were growing up, man, like, you remember like music videos weren't so explicit. You know, like,
Yeah.
I remember growing up, like early 2000s. And the early 2000s, even like with Pac, even with like guys that, you know, are like, you know, at the top of the rap game, even their music videos weren't so satanic, devilish, explicit. But like these days, bro, like 2024, 2020s, man, like there is like, if you're a kid watching this stuff, it's not good, man. It's not good.
Yeah, and like back in the day, bro, we're watching stuff on MTV, on TV if it comes on.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm a kid, I got more explicit content to the act, like on the palm of my fingertips.
Yeah.
Or in my hands.
Yeah.
At access at any point.
Yeah.
So it's like the kids out of everything. And I guess, like, if you are, like, you got to think about it. If you're a rapper, right, you dress in a way that a rapper does, maybe stereotypical, that's a little bit more stereotypical. So let's say something like military, right? If you're wearing a military uniform, you know that you're either a part of the military,
For sure.
or you are on the side of military,
Yeah.
right? Or you're on their team. So when there's the same symbolism, the same imagery being constantly pushed, even if there's no words attached to it, there's attachment towards what they're trying to portray and who they're trying to portray themselves to be, whether they're a part of it or whether they're supporting that cast.
Oh, 100%, man. I totally agree with that. I think another thing too is like, even when you watch like now I'll see these TikToks of like Disney movies and Disney shows and how they break it down and how and like this like sort of devil explicit stuff that is like integrated within the Disney movies that we grew up on. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that? Like, I'm curious to know.
Man, it's crazy because like even music that I heard that like maybe when I was a lot younger, when I got older, I realized what I was listening to. And at the time, I was just enjoying like the beat and whatever it might be and not even making sense of the words. The same way as how I see Disney movies is like, I just enjoy it a lot. But as an adult, when you have more self-awareness of what things represent and how things are being displayed to you.
Yeah.
Like rap is all about double entendres, right?
For sure.
You're saying one thing, but it could also mean two or three different things.
Yeah.
So in that same way, like when I see a lot of things in Disney now, it seems like a visual double entendre.
For sure.
They're showing you something that seems very simple, but I guess like the other side to like the Satanist propaganda or agenda is that a part of their belief is if they express to you what is right or wrong, or they're telling you this is what we're doing and you don't have any intolerance to that, then you're allowing them to be who they are.
Oh, for sure.
So like it kind of gets to the point where it's like, if you are accepting, like this guy is a pedophile or whatever it might be, right? It's like, oh, but that's okay. I'll give him a pass.
Yeah.
To them, they don't feel like they're doing anything wrong because in their beliefs, they have to actually express what they're doing and put it in front of your face. And I think how they do that is through music videos, is through different forms of portals or whatever you want to call them to access their own version of demonic spirits.
Oh, for sure, man.
Damn, we sound like conspiracy theories on this shit.
Well, yeah, we on our conspiracy shit.
But for real, you've never seen a guy lie who drinks San Pellegrino with pinkies out.
Yeah. No, it's so true, man. I think there's a lot of different like symbolism when it comes to this stuff, and like you said, double entendres. There's a lot of that. Mm-hmm. I totally. There's symbolism in everything, and it's just whether you see it or not. And sure, maybe some of it could be conspiracy. Maybe some of it could be like, maybe you overthink it and you think, yeah, it might not be true. But there's a lot of clear-cut symbolism, especially in music videos, in Disney and stuff, where there's hints. There still are some blatant messages. Mm-hmm. But, when I was growing up as a kid, obviously I didn't really understand it. But when you look back at it now, you're like, oh, that was like not right. Yeah. Or, or it was like evil. Yeah. It was blatantly evil. But as a kid, you don't really know. You're watching you're being entertained and you watch it. So I don't know. Yeah.
You see it in a different light when you're older. Yeah. I think like even when I was in high school, I used to I'm one to go down rabbit holes because there's certain things that didn't add up for me because I moved from Pakistan, Abu Dhabi, and I would hear about things about Pakistan and Abu Dhabi from here, right? Mm-hmm. And there was two different versions because what I lived there was completely different than what they were saying here, mm-hmm. right? And that mismatch kind of opened up the gates like, okay, what else is, if this is kind of off, what else is kind of off in my sphere that I'm living in? Yeah. So when I was younger, I used to be a fan of, for example, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Rihanna. Yeah. But when you have Rihanna in a S&M music video that's highly explicit, where if you actually freeze the frames, it says Princess of the Illuminati, or and have like, for example, I think a common theme is that triangle. Yeah. Right. You see it. You see Jay holding it up. You see Rihanna in a music video dancing within that triangle. And then if you in like ways that her body can't even contort. Like I saw a video breakdown of somebody talking about like her shoulders and stuff can't even go like that. But it resembles, if you take a picture of the satanic blasphemy or what, I don't even know the exact terms. I just saw the damn image. And I was like, this shit looks identical to this image. Right. And it's kind of creepy that people are going out of their way to alter an image that can't actually naturally be produced. Yeah. Right. Like when you start seeing those things and you understand that somebody deliberately did this, it's not by coincidence. For sure. Those are the things that kind of open up my eyes to be like, you know, maybe this isn't quite as what it seems. And it made it harder for me to enjoy a lot of music. So I guess like now I'm a huge Lil Wayne fan. I grew up on Lil Wayne. Yeah. But I'm also self-aware in certain times where I question it, right? I'm not going to treat him like he's God. For sure. But you know, if you know me, you know me. Oh yeah. You know that guy's the GOAT for me. Yeah, for sure. But at this point, guys like Russ who don't have a label that they're trying to please, right? Who don't have people with their own agendas. For example, Unholy, the song by Sam Smith. I heard that it had like 7 different producers, 7 different writers, a lot of different influence not coming from the artist who's singing the song. Yeah. Right? And then number 2 was single artist, single producer. Everything is just deliberately single. So it's crazy when you look at like the people who are part of labels and whatnot. You just have to, at this point, question, is there an agenda behind them? And what agenda are they trying to push? Because a guy like Russ, the reason why he's so appealing to me is because, A, he's a fucking man. That he's a GOAT, right? Yeah, for sure. He kind of like pulled out the different versions of us that we see in us and him, right? And he told the story through it beautifully. And you could tell that his music has more purity in it. There's more art form in it. Yeah. And when there's more art form, I think those are the guys, at least now, that I'm more drawn to. I love listening to Qashus Diamonds on repeat. Rogue One on repeat. I think when those songs came out, no lie, just on repeat probably at least 50 times before I switched it.
That's love, man. That's brotherly love right there. No, I appreciate that. I think going back to the Russ thing and whatnot, I think that artists, especially when you're on a label, you don't really have control of your music. Like you have influence, but at the end of the day, on how that's being marketed and how that's being distributed, you have a certain say, but you don't have all of the say. And I think that's what especially like I know like singers, rappers, people who just want to do one thing, they are okay with other people taking the realm of producing, distributing, marketing. And in some cases they have to, especially if you're getting an advance from a label and all you got to do is just make sure you sing or you rap and you deliver the album on time. That's your role in a machine that's being rotated and it just continues to go. So whereas with a guy like Russ or any independent artist, you have to wear multiple hats. You have to wear the business hat. You have to wear the marketing hat. You have to wear the rapper hat. You have to go out and figure out how to, do all these different things. Whereas with a label, they already have that backing, that the resources to do all those things. They have people in place to do those things. And I remember we were watching, or at least you and I we were watching Russ and Andrew Schultz. And they were talking the first half of that show, they were talking about fake streams. It was so interesting to me, man, where in order to get on, like, I think Russ was saying, in order to get on the radio, you had to hit like a certain threshold the top 10, like top 10 playlists.
1.2.
Yeah, 1.2, exactly. Yeah. So he was saying how...
1.2 million, that is.
1.2 million, yeah. He was saying that in order to get into the top 10 in Canada or top 10 US, you had to hit that threshold before it was like on these certain playlists or platforms. And that artists or companies would like, let's just say you have an organic, like 900,000, they'll add in like 300,000 or 400, 500,000 more fake streams in order to push that artist into the top 10. And I was just like, that, like, to me blew my mind.
And the cost of that even blew my mind. Like, I saw the same part, and it was like $20,000-$40,000, and they put it under marketing.
Yeah.
Right, which is just wild. But yeah, it's crazy. Like, because did you watch the whole interview?
I haven't watched the entire interview, but
it's a long ass interview, but it's good.
Yeah.
But it's great how it gives you the insight. And I guess what Russ really talked about in that one was like his song, I think 315 he was talking about. 315.
Yeah, 315.
He was at 800, 900,000 organically.
Yeah.
And had he just took that fake stream route, then he'd be in the top 10. Song gets pushed way more. But I think like what he does a really good job of is, even if he has a team doing it, right? It's in-house. I think like when you're finding, and what he kind of opened up my eyes to the music industry more is these guys are just making the same calls for 7 different artists. Hey, we got this guy. Can we put him on your top 10? Great song, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And either they get a yes or no. And when he said, if you get a no, I can get a no myself too.
Yeah.
Right. So what do I need you for?
Yeah.
And when you got more people than one to please, then it doesn't hurt the same when you get a no.
Yeah.
Right. And he's saying, on the contrary, if he just contacts all these labels or like Spotify and whatnot, then it's him selling himself more, and that has better impact. So I guess like, how do you feel like? Do you feel like it's almost better to have somebody in-house? If somebody's doing that, even if it's not the artist himself, would it be better to hire like a friend, a sister, a brother, or somebody who's good at marketing and has good communication skills and is able to understand your vision? Because compared to a label, I think the people closest to you, if not you, is going to be able to sell that better than the label can.
Yeah, I agree to a certain extent. So, for example, I'll give you another example where it went the opposite way, which was Funk Volume and Hobson. So Hobson and his homie Swizz, they were the ones that were the rappers. And then as Hobson blew up, Hobson hired Swizz's older brother, Dame, to run Funk Volume, the label. And so he put all of his trust into his best friend's older brother to manage everything, because he had, a little bit of experience in business and business management or whatnot. So Hobson was talking about this, where as he was blowing up and he was making these, crazy music videos, and he's starting to go on tour and really build his audience, he put all the trust into Dame to have the responsibility of booking him hotels, booking him on tour, doing the accounting, all these sorts of things. And what he realized throughout this process was money wasn't like coming in, or like he was booking like shitty hotels. There was some weird gaps within the tour. And then same thing, like he wouldn't get like the amount of money that he assumed. Like he was like, oh, like what happened here? Oh, we used it for this, or we used it for that. So long story short, I don't know what in that relationship happened, but basically Hobson realized that Dame was mismanaging. And then it became this whole thing. And then he cut ties with, not only did he cut ties with his best friend, Swizz, who was on the label as well, but he cut ties with Dame. And then all that money and all the resources and all those things, he had to basically cut off and restart with his own label and in-house, hire other people in-house to do the things he's doing now. And so that is like worst case scenario, where you get screwed over by a best friend or a best friend's brother, and it doesn't turn out the way you want it. Because I feel like personally, had Hobson had a solid team around him, he would have been just as big as like Russ or some of these guys. He would have probably had like bigger features, like big features. And to this day, and not saying that Hobson doesn't have big features, love the guy. I love his art. I love his music. I love who he is. Like he's one of the, I would say that one of the top rappers in our generation. But the how big he's gotten, he could have been even, I would say, twice or 3 times as big had his in-house team done the right things. So That's just my opinion on it, but it could go either way.
Yeah, I agree. And I think like what Russ was also talking about was audit the labels. And just like you're going to audit the labels, you got to audit your own team.
You have to audit your own team. You have to make sure that, and I mean, there's a level of trust where you're not micromanaging.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a level of trust where it's like, hey, I trust this person to get this done for me.
Yeah.
And I trust this person to give me the right facts. And hopefully if there's actual trust built, that there isn't like that sort of questioning of like, well, where's my money at? Or where's like, why is this like this?
Yeah.
Where you would hope that person would just come forward and be honest and say, all right, we made, 10 mil on this tour or whatever. And here's how everything was distributed. Here are the costs, and boom. And then it's like clockwork if you have like a trusted team around you. But then either way in this regard, like the reason I think we're discussing this is about leverage.
Mm-hmm.
If you have leverage, it doesn't matter who you're working with because you are in the power seat. Just like Russ, when him and Columbia had talks, he doesn't need Columbia. He's already doing numbers. He's already got that sort of backing. Yeah. But when if now you're 50-50, okay, now you can do some crazy shit because, okay, Columbia doesn't have the leverage over, okay, we can blow you up. It's like, nah, dude, I'm already blown up.
Yeah.
I'm already at this point. So what are you going to offer me that I don't have? And then they offered radio and they offered all this other mass distribution stuff. And they promised other things that Russ potentially couldn't have done on his own. And then he got into that role. And then all of a sudden it was like, or they got into that partnership. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, I could, and then in his head, he's like, oh, I could do this. Or, they're not doing as, it's just an Apple rep or it's just a Spotify rep or whatever. It's like, I could probably do this on my own. Why am I giving 50% of this album for that?
Yeah. And I think like what he really brought up was on the flip side, this is kind of like entrepreneurship. It's like, do you want to work for a company or do you want to be an entrepreneur and have everything run where the hours might be completely different? So I think on the flip side, what he was mentioning, which I do agree with, is there has to be great labels out there too. There has to be great guys who take pride in their job and they believe that they can take that artist to that next level. So I'm sure there's labels like he was talking about, you got to audit the right ones. I'm sure there's some great ones out there that do their job and care for their job the way that an artist would want them to care for their job.
For sure. And I think especially now, I think the day and age of relying 100% on labels is gone. And Russ is like the trendsetter in this, and other artists like Hobson and things like that. You don't need necessarily a major label, but I think it's all about leverage. And if you can partner with a great label and they're doing their job, like you said, and they're killing it, I mean, it's just gonna just scale you double or triple of what you are right now. So I think at the end of the day, it's leverage.
100%. And you know what? Side note, I really enjoyed seeing this collaboration because when Andrew Schultz was talking about what made him a better artist in terms of comedy, it was because of a completely different artist in a different industry. He was saying that when I saw you putting out one song a week, mix, master, and produce, then he was like, I can do a joke a week. Mm-hmm. Right. So I love the beauty in like how artists find creative inspiration through not only just their own realm and their own portal, but like outside influences and how beautiful things can get. Cause Andrew Schultz isn't a small name. Yeah, he's a big name. Like I actually really enjoy his comedy, and I had no idea that that's how him and Russ, that's the type of relationship that they had. Yeah. Simply based off of that fact. So that was cool to see.
Where do you take inspiration? Who are some creative, maybe people that aren't in, the basketball realm, or maybe they're in business, but they're in a completely different industry?
I would definitely say music. Music hits home for me as a guy like Russ. Mm-hmm. I think appreciating different forms of music and his ability to produce something like Santiago. Yeah. Completely different than what we like the Chomp series.
For sure.
Right? So I think his versatility and his approach, because just as much as he is an artist, I think he's very big on personal development And he gives out a lot of keys, whether it be in his music or in his podcast. Same thing. I kind of felt with Nipsey Hussle is like, I remember when he was really doing things outside of just music. Yeah. He was starting a STEM program. He was starting different entrepreneurships, like offices in the hood where people who don't have access have the ability to go into a library, a office, a building, and be able to work on their goals and stuff. Right. So when I see stuff like that, and even listening to like Russ's podcast the other day, what traps me, and I think where me and him have a similar issue, is perfectionism. And you've said this to me before, is like, I don't want to just see the highlights, but in my mind, it's so aggressively approached that I just don't like imperfection. So it's harder for me to put out something that to me is mediocre. Right. Or like that still might be considered good enough.
For sure.
So to me, I think I find a lot of inspiration through those guys, because it's even listening to the pod yesterday, like one of the things that I kind of reflected on was, like social media will change how you approach things. And the way he was talking about albums is like, that's where the growth is, right? The growth isn't in the money. The growth isn't in the views, the likes, whatever it might be. But each time you produce a new album, that's where the growth is. And it made me start thinking, like, how do I really value growth, and how do I make it scalable, and how do I approach it to make it better, right? Is it by putting out content and art forms, different art forms through visual expression, through basketball, whatever it might be, by myself? Or am I catering and chasing a bag, like he was talking about in the same analogy? Not literally chasing a bag, but am I doing it for, what reasons am I doing it for?
Sure.
And I was having that deep thought with myself last night. And I think it's beautifully said, because it's as simple as it is like the perfectionism prevents you from producing more albums. But if you just consider the albums as growth, and you have self-awareness that this is better than the last, and you're doing as good as you can, and your efforts there, then eventually the amount of albums you produce is where the growth is going to happen. So I'd say artists like that, in the same mind form, I like studying people. Yeah. So studying any form of greatness, whether it be music, same thing in basketball, like guys like Kyrie talking about certain things on how they worked on their game, and even the people who are in the same industry as me. Like I feel like when you feel like you're your own person, you can grab inspiration from all of them and create your own form of what you wanted to blend and mix together.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's beautifully said, man. I think I'm the same way.
Yeah. Who would you say is yours? Like who are you pulling?
Yeah, I mean, this. I mean, there's guys like, I would say Christian Guzman is one of those guys. Logic, Russ, J. Cole, music, of course, because I'm in that sort of realm. And then filmmaking, Jacob Owens is another guy, LA director. These sorts of guys. But one thing that I realized is that I think the reason, especially we gravitate towards them, is because they have that entrepreneurial sort of way of moving. So they don't just do one thing. And I realized that. It was a light bulb moment for me. It was like, well, if you got take a guy like Jacob Owens, Christian Guzman, Russ, and Logic, what's the common theme that they are? Although they are incredible in one thing, they also have all these multitude of talents and skill sets that they have that go beyond just the music or beyond just the filmmaking. So they're not just like a music director or a filmmaker or a clothing brand CEO. Mm-hmm. They're more than that. They embody the savageness, the hunger, the hustle, the go after your dreams sort of mentality that since I was a kid, that's kind of what I've dreamed of. It was always like, Russell Westbrook's "Why Not?" That's why I love Russell Westbrook's message. Why not? Yeah. That's his whole brand, and I love that because it's like, why not us? Mm-hmm. We're from Edmonton. Why can't we do these big things? Why can't we pursue things that maybe 90% of people would not chase because it's unrealistic or whatnot, and not settling in the lane of mediocrity. And I think all these guys embody that. Whether you can argue whether they're the biggest or not the biggest or whatever, to me that doesn't matter. Even people that aren't at that level of attention or followers, but they embody the I am gonna get shit done. I'm just going out and getting my shit done, and I'm a just straight operator, executioner. Like I just execute, and that's the people who I gravitate towards. So not the people that just continue talking. And this isn't a diss to Gary Vee, but the thing is with Gary, like he's done it, and he's
put out like 7 pieces of content.
But the thing is there is an audience for that. Like, and I told this to I don't know if it was if we were talking about this, but we were talking about this with Kaylor. That initially, if you think of in your own journey, right? Take it back like early 20s, or take it back where you had nothing. No money to your name, no status, no basketball academy, nothing, zero. You're at ground zero. You're just a kid, and you have aspirations to do all the things that you're doing today. When you're that kid and you are pursuing the ambitious dream, you need the messages from a guy like Gary or Elliot Hulse or Grant Cardone or all these guys that talk about happiness and motivation and all that shit. I remember that. I remember consuming hours and hours of Gary Vee when we first started, like 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. There is a level where you need every week, you need to consume that shit so that you are on the constant grind. That when shit gets tough, when you're working that 9 to 6, 9 to 5, and you know this for me, when I'm working that agency life, and then from 6 to 10, I have to create a podcast, create this, and there's nothing happening. It feels like nothing's moving. You need those messages. But one day, what is this, 1, 2, 3, 4 years into that, you get to a point where you're starting to build momentum, things are starting to roll for you, you have things that you start to acquire, and those messages don't hit home anymore. Not to say it's not that they don't hit home. You don't need those messages in order to get you through the shit. Because you've built that. It's ingrained in your subconscious. Now, the talk about the happiness, the mindset, we're already there. The mindset is already there. Now you need a different motivation to get you to that next level.
Now you need PBD.
Now you need business strategies, or now you need more systems. You need stuff that because you don't want it. Because you don't. I don't need someone to tell me to motivate me to get up on a Monday morning. I don't need that shit no more. And I'm not dissing anyone that needs that. I'm saying that you get to a point where you don't need you should follow your dreams and you should be happy and you should do. It's not that anymore. That message has been ingrained in you. So now now the mentality is, okay, how do I get to that next level? And you need next level ideas. You need next level thought. You need more thoughtfulness around the things that you're consuming.
I think like at a younger age, there's more of a fight of suppressing who you truly want to be. So just acknowledging in one of the books by Grant Cardone that I really enjoyed, and I remember walking laps around my street. I would tell myself 2 laps and then I'm going back home. I'd be out there doing 10, 12, 15 laps because I was enjoying the audiobook so much. But it was be obsessed or be average. And it kind of gave me clarity on it's okay to be as crazy in my mind as I typically am, and I don't have to suppress it. But then the moment you have that acceptance and now you're in it, Now, like you're saying, I don't need to wake up at 6. It's like before I was like almost not waking up at 6 because then I was being obsessed. I was being that lunatic. But once you kind of come to understanding in terms of that and take that leap and take that jump where there is a lot of risk on the back end, then you're going to have guys like Kenny Bhullar show up out of nowhere and come join the pod, bro.
What's up, man?
What's up, boys? Good
Aja.
Come on, bro. Come on in. Come on in.
How's everyone doing?
Good, man. How you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. Catch me up. What is the...
That's a okay. Hold on.
Let me adjust your camera so that you're in it, so we have a full.
Thank you, boys.
That's a ganda bacha. I guess we can roll into the Tucker Carlson and Vladimir Putin interview.
Sure.
Regardless of whether you've seen it or not, what are your opinions on the fact that the interview actually went down? And do you feel like Tucker was being a traitor to the United States, as many portrayed him to be on X?
You know what? When I saw that interview, I don't think Tucker Carlson was being a traitor at all, because in fact, there's so much of what he asked and did that I'm sure every American is curious about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, what is Putin's agenda behind why he's at war with Ukraine? And funny enough, he just went on a whole entire
history
hour history lesson just to, like, I don't know what that was. But then the rumors are like, Putin loves to be on a long form content podcast. And he thought this was a brilliant idea just to expose more history and talk about Russia itself. Nonetheless, I just feel like, to answer your question, man, he's not being a traitor for America. In fact, I think the opposite. I think who better than Tucker Carlson right now to ask these questions and be in a position to have someone on that I feel like no one would ever have the balls to have on with that big of a platform or name as a quote unquote reporter in America.
Well, did you hear, like, even when he was talking about how he wanted to do the interview 3 years ago, that the Biden administration was like spying on their messages and didn't allow for it to happen. And then now when they're trying to do the interview again, they were having a hard time, or not a hard time, but the same situation was kind of repeating itself. But they decided to go with the interview regardless. Why? I guess I want to know your guys' opinion on, like, or perspective on, why do you think that the Biden administration is trying to prevent this interview from happening? And what does that even say about free speech or the ability for Americans to really know, to choose for themselves? Because his statement was, this doesn't have to be something that you have to have full agreement on, but it's something that you should watch as an American, and you shouldn't be a slave to the American systems and choose for yourself. Do you feel like make your own decisions, right? What do you think about Biden administration kind of blocking or wanting to block that interview?
Man, I think it's, first and foremost, when you hear what Putin had to say about the fact that he hasn't talked to Biden since 2 years ago, I think that alone says enough. Like, the fact that Biden's pretty much funding a big part of this war in Ukraine just shows, like, how much I'm sure he doesn't want a lot of this information to get leaked out, because there's no communication with Putin. Like, the fact that you haven't talked to the guy in 2 years, and Putin in the interview says something along the lines of, you should ask Biden what we talked about last, and pretty much laughs it off and goes, you don't want to know from me what we talk about. So I feel like there's just clearly a lot of things that are being covered up that is very, very shady. Very shady. Imagine, like, you're in a relationship with someone, and then you just start talking to someone and interviewing another person, and the girl goes, oh, you want to know? You don't know about what me and your significant other talk about? Oh, damn. Ask him. I dare you. And it's like, yo, what? Like, what do you mean? And like, that's so shady, you know?
Yeah, well, I think one of the main reasons is that at the end of the day, any society doesn't want their citizens to be influenced by stuff that they can't control and people that they can't control, right? So Tucker having this interview with Vladimir, how can the government of the USA control what Vladimir is going to say to Tucker, right? And vice versa. How can you control Tucker at the same time. It's all about control. It's all about information. It's like we were talking about this. It's about misinformation, information in general, right? Where you consume. If Americans are consuming what Putin's saying and it influences their decision on who they vote for or how society gets influenced, well, that's not good. It's not good for the Biden administration for that to happen. The propaganda, the marketing, the messages that come from the government of the USA, they want to make sure their citizens hear and listen and get influenced by their messages, not messages that come from the outside. So I think that's one of the main factors. I don't know about this behind the scenes stuff that's happening or what chess moves are happening behind the scenes, and I'm sure there are, but that's like one of the main reasons I feel personally.
And I think an interesting thing that Putin mentioned was that all of this media, because like even when they were talking about the Nord Stream pipeline, and this is something that I heard about in the past year because I follow this YouTube channel called Redacted. It's like a news information, and they similar to Tucker is friends with them. Is they provide information that you might not hear about in the mainstream media.
Sounds like a medicine.
Huh? Redacted?
Yeah.
No, it's like, how like people's, for example, there was a lot of redacted information taken out.
Oh, I thought you said redacted.
No, redacted.
Yeah. Okay.
My fault.
Got you.
My pronunciation started improving. But yeah, so like they had brought up how the Biden administration had taken down the Nord Stream pipeline and how it provides gas and heat for a lot of those people. And they're going to have a harder time in the winter time for that to happen. Now, when Tucker brought that up to Putin and he said, why didn't you bring it up? He said that, well, the Western media is too strong. They have coverage. All of it is controlled by like the elites. And then the same media that controls that, they also have ties in Europe to be running the same information and stuff that they want to promote and agenda they want to promote over there. So he was like, so at that point, it's like he's making his own chess move, I'm sure, based off of that by not saying something. But he understands and is aware because they were talking about how that was the largest CO2 emission leak or whatever you want to call it in history. And it's something that if we're talking about global warming and climate change and all of that, I mean, the people that are advocating for it are causing the most extreme versions of it, no? It's interesting to think about.
It's very interesting.
Did you think that, like, what do you think is good that happened out of that interview?
I think what's good is, like, people would have the option to have an alternate perspective to hear for themselves. Because I think a lot of times, like, I'm one who dives deep into rabbit holes because I want to know more information, because a lot of times I've been fed the wrong information that I might have believed, and you're not going to catch me twice, right? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, blame's on me. Can't put the blame on you, right? So to me, it's like ever since that happened, Cash is laughing because he's like, J. Cole, A Tale of Two City. But basically, like, what I got out of that was I'm always looking at information that's not just in the mainstream media. I will still listen to both. But the reason why I have such strong opinions on a lot of things is because I don't want to be a fool, and I think ignorance is bliss. So if I live in that bliss and I'm ignorant to all the information and have a strong opinion, then I'm just a hypocrite. So I think the option to have an interview that can be highly viewed by so many different people, I think that's something that was good that came out of it. And whether you want to believe in it or not believe in it, that's for you to decide. I'm not telling people or wanting people to be like, yeah, Putin, right? I think I'm more on the side of, yeah, we get to hear what's happening for ourselves rather than somebody telling us what's going on.
Yeah, that's facts. I feel like it's still nice now to recognize that there's people out there willing to, let's just say, it's sad to even frame it this way, but like risk their reputation to bring on people like that so we can hear from their perspective.
Well, did you guys hear about what Trudeau said about our one of our leaders, Danielle Smith, for Alberta?
What do you say?
Not
Recently. So she recently proposed that, or like had this law that she's trying to make. I don't know whether it's made or not, but if you're under 17, you can't go through like hormone therapy or whatever you want to call it, gender transitioning, right? You have to be over 18 to do that. And Trudeau went online and made a statement saying that it's not a surprise to him that after having Tucker Carlson in an interview and chatting with him, that she's so strongly influenced that he's the reason she decided to make that law. So it's
Interesting.
Isn't that
That's very interesting.
very interesting? Because I think like that's their side of the agenda. It's like, how would you counter that? And
Yeah.
she's the first to actually redacted also. It's crazy that a show that I was watching that's from the States is talking about Alberta, because she's the first one to actually do that within any parts of Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I feel like this is why a lot of people are asking, I believe the opposing party leader is Pierre, and they're like, what are your true thoughts on it? And he's just like, you need to be of legal age, period, to make that decision if you choose to want to change your sex.
You can't drink alcohol, you can't smoke, you can't do all these, you can't go to the casino, you can't drive till a certain age.
For sure.
But if you're 12 or 10, you can change your whole life forever.
Doesn't make sense. I totally get how parents must feel right now. Like when parents say they're scared to raise their kid, or there's people who like don't have kids at all because they're scared to like put a kid in this world now. So I'm getting older, I totally get where they're coming from to hear stuff like this.
It's interesting to me that we're living in a society now that has so many different lanes of information, right? And you will lean or gravitate towards certain lanes based on your biases and on your personal beliefs, on your religion, all these sorts of things, right? And the more you lean into that, the more that gets fed to you as well.
You know, one thing that I really want to say that I don't know if I've been able to really portray is I love everybody. Whether you're whatever race you are, whether you're gay or not, however you are, that's who you are. I'm not here to be like, that's wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. I'm here to say that influence is something that happens at all ages, right? We're influencing people just by how we talk on the camera. So to me, if I was being influenced and hearing shit at 10, 12, 13, 14, I would be confused as hell, because I was anyway. So it's like, why are we allowing? Because like there's certain parents, and no offense to these parents, but I've just seen, will let their kids run the fucking show. If Zane, hell no. You're running my shit till you're 18. And when you're 18, then I respect you enough to form your own opinions, make your own mistakes. Now, it's not that I'm trying to control him. I still let him make his mistakes. But when I know he's stepping out of a boundary that might be dangerous for him, that might have more repercussions than it has benefits, then I'll probably suggest something, because you know what? That's the reason why I'm here. I'm somebody who's had a little bit more wisdom and experience because of the time I've spent on this earth more than he has. So if I can't even provide that to my own damn kids, then what the hell am I doing if I'm letting my kids run the show? You hungry? Bitch, no. It's 3 o'clock, you're going to eat now. It's 6 o'clock, you're going to eat now.
Yeah, it's so true, man. I agree. I think right now, like,
Okay,
talked about this before.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you guys this. So when you were growing up, and what's one thing that you guys did that went opposite? Something that you did that was either a detriment, or something that you did that was the opposite of what your parents or your older brother or whoever asked you to do, but you purposely did it on purpose, and then it turned into either something good or bad.
Oh, man.
Kenny, I know you have some stories.
Kenny got too many.
Oh.
Let the archives open,
Yeah,
bro.
open the archives, bro.
First thing that came to mind was, I remember it was, this is so funny. I remember like my dad thought I should have been in school. But school was done. Like it was.
Which school?
It was like back in junior high. Like I was in grade 7 or 8. And this was the time where you got to opt in or opt out to go to school during finals. So I just opted out, right? I told my parents to sign this piece of paper. I knew they would tell me to opt in. They're like, you're not gonna not go to school. They signed a piece of paper and I say it was a field trip. And I remember I was just like biking. I was having a good time. Like 1 p.m. It's on Thursday. I should be in like my block 3 class. But I'm, just going around biking, going to Booster Juice. It's so crazy, man. I remember my dad's on the road and he's driving and he looks over. He just rolls down his window. He's like, Kenny? I'm like, oh shit, right? Like, I feel like I got right at it. I'm like, yeah, Dad. He's like, what the fuck you doing? You should be in school. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I booked it on my bike so fast. He goes home. He sees him. I'm there. I didn't go home. I went to my cousin's house. He calls my cousin. Is Kenny there? Oh man, he's like, what do I say? What do I say? I'm just hiding at my cousin's house. Yeah. I'm like, what do I do in this situation? So he calls my uncle. My uncle says, yeah, he's here. My dad came in. Holy, first thing he does, he starts chasing me around my cousin's house. I was like, I don't have to be in school. Right?
Yeah.
And then we go home. So funny. He's just like, what the hell are you doing? You should be in school. What are you doing running around on a bike, right? Just going nuts. I'll never forget that day because as much as, yeah, sure, I should have been in school. If I was just honest, like, as a kid, like, you feel like your lie actually gets you in more trouble.
Yeah.
And didn't even have to lie in the first place.
Yeah.
So that was kind of that moment where even my dad's like, why wouldn't you just tell us?
Yeah.
Like, I wasted an hour trying to figure out, like, what the hell are you doing out of school thinking you're just skipping?
Yeah.
He's like, just next time, like, just if you're honest, then we won't have this problem. I remember, like, that was a golden lesson out of that.
Yeah.
I was like, shit, maybe I don't have to lie.
What about you, Khurram?
It was crazy.
Man, what was the question in itself again? Because I got too into
opposite of what your parents tell you to do. A story where you've done something that went completely against the grain of what your parents asked you to do, and it was either a detriment or it had actually turned out being something. I mean,
I'm gonna relate it back to basketball because at the time, I don't want to get my ass in trouble, mom and dad. So
Mom's
watching, but I would say basketball because that was probably the thing that they said after a certain point because I had curfews of 9 p.m. and sometimes practice ending at 9:30. So if it was late, then I get in trouble for I can't control what time practice ends, and I didn't feel like I was doing anything bad, right? They wanted me to spend more time studying and doing other things, but to me, I knew that basketball was helping me mentally and it was providing me with more grounded stability as a teenager. So when I would go to practice, there'd be the repercussions were I didn't have a ride home. So sometimes in wintertime, I'm walking home and bus stations sometimes just didn't run because I was living in a newer area at the time and the bus stations had to be built. And sometimes I was just in my feelings too much. And I was like, the world's against me. Nobody likes me. I'm in the mud myself. We're far from it. But I just put on headphones and walk home. It'd take me probably about an hour. But I just remember those were the repercussions. But I guess those same walks home, like when you got a lot of time to think, especially as a kid, and you just finish a practice, you exert a lot of energy. So you kind of like mellow down. Those walks home provided me with so much clarity on what I really wanted to do. And I almost felt like I needed that in its own way. Like if my parents picked me up, I'd just be like, whatever, I'm home and probably do something else. But I can literally think back to the albums, the songs I was listening to, things that were happening at that exact time, simply because emotionally, my emotions were enhanced because it's freezing and I'm walking home. So like everything just felt like it was that much more stimulated. But I would say it was a benefit because I had to, like, I would think a lot, like, if this is something I really want to do, I have to prove it to them. Right? Because right now this isn't it. So it actually built deeper conviction in me to go that much harder.
Dude, I love that, man. And I'll relate. I'll share a quick story before we wrap up the pod. But similar sort of basketball story. So my dad was out of town, and before he left out of town, he told me, "Omid, you're not allowed to take the Honda Civic." Or sorry, no, it was a Honda Accord. And at the time, I had just gotten my license, and so it's like, I don't want to bike everywhere anymore. That's how I used to get around places. I just bike everywhere. And, I had basketball practice. I was playing twice a week, 3 times a week. And we had practice in the evenings from like 6 to 8. And I knew, I told my dad, yeah, no worries. Like, I'm not going to take the car. But in the back of my head, I'm like, I'm taking this bitch. I'm driving. I'm not going to bike all the way to practice. Who's going to do that?
Yeah.
It's going to take me 5 minutes instead of an hour. Huh?
Was it warm or cold?
It was summertime. So it was warm. So, yeah. So I was like, so it was one evening. It was Wednesday. I still remember this. Wednesday evening, drive, take the car. My mom was like, okay, if your dad finds out, he's going to be really mad. I was like, Mom, where are the keys? I'm taking this, right? So I take the car. I go to my basketball practice. Basketball ends. I get in my car and it's pouring rain, leaving to come home. And I get to the light, the first intersection, and light turns green, and I'm about to turn left. And as I'm turning left, a truck runs the red and hits my car, T-bones me. And luckily, the guy swerved last minute. He was a kid driving a truck too. Get that? How ironic, right? A kid driving this truck, he swerves last minute, hits the front of the car, not my door. Had he hit my door, it probably would have been like a serious accident. Luckily, someone was looking out for me that night.
This guy's dad told him not to drive either. Yeah. Both y'all were out.
God was doing some mysterious thing.
Yo, straight up. So I remember the car, spins a few times. It basically got totaled. And luckily, I was okay. But like glass was in my hair. Like the window had shattered. I had glass like stuck in my fucking scalp, like from the window. But like the first thing I thought of, like I was like, my heart was like pumping. I was like, my dad's gonna fucking kill me. That's the only thing I could think of. I'm like, I'm fucked. Like my dad is gonna absolutely murder me, right? So call my mom, right? I'm like everyone gets out. They're like, the street. Then there's witnesses and stuff. Someone's calling 911, whatever. And I get out of the car and I'm just like, what happened sort of deal, right? And all I'm thinking, I'm like, damn, I'm screwed. So I call my mom and I'm like, hey, I got into a car accident. I need you to come here to pick me up. And then she's like yelling and screaming and crying. She's like, are you okay? Like, I'm fine. Like, come through. So anyway, long story short, my mom comes. She picks me up. The police are there. We give police reports. I'm sitting in the back of this cop car with this other kid who hit me. And anyway, it was just a weird experience. Luckily, nobody got hurt. I didn't get hurt. But the car was totaled. And I'm like, bro, how are we going to tell this to my dad? Right? So we get home and my mom calls my dad. My dad's overseas. And it's like 3:00 in the morning. He picks up and I hear it on speakerphone. Mom's like, your son got into an accident and the car's totaled. And because he was pissed. He's like, why are you calling me? You know it's 3:30 in the morning. I'm sleeping. Why are you calling me? Is everything okay? He's like, your son got into a car accident and he totaled the car. And he didn't say anything. He hung up. He hung up.
A long pause.
It was a pause. And it was like, I'm waiting to hear his reaction because I'm thinking he's going to yell, scream. Dude, he hung up. That made it even worse. That's way
worse, yeah.
And now for like 2 weeks, I'm pacing because he's coming back in 2 weeks. I am so scared of what this guy's going to do. And he comes back he tells me, because he's like, I took out all my anger overseas. He came back, he was normal. And you know how Muslims do it. He sacrificed a lamb and like did these prayers and stuff. Just made sure that I was okay. And he came back, but it was like this.
And the sacrifice of the lamb
Yeah.
is to feed people.
Yeah.
It's not just.
Yeah. You feed people. It's part of a ritual that we do.
That's awesome.
And it was one of those things that I thought he was gonna come and beat my ass when he got home, but he came back and he was like, I was really angry, but I'm just glad you're okay. But the car was totaled and we had to get a new car and stuff like that. But I went against, dude. He warned me. He was like, don't you take the car. Like, don't take the car. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, I'm taking the car.
Yeah.
The moment you leave, I'm taking the car.
That poor lamb. Man. I'm just picturing that lamb.
No, bro, that's what Muslims do.
Bro, you're a carnivore.
Oh, that's fair. It's so bad.
No.
But it's a good tradition.
You know, it's
people.
the tradition.
You want to explain the?
Yeah, we kind of have it in Eid as well.
Tradition, yeah.
It's not about like killing something. It's about people who are hungry, homeless, and needing of food. Is to feed them. So it just happened to be a lamb.
No, that's good. I'm just so glad we're talking about that and mentioning it so people actually recognize that it's not.
Yeah. I don't want people to think that my dad.
He was so mad. Yeah, I was like, this shit sounds so wrong.
No. It's more of a thing of like feeding people and doing something of charity.
Yeah,
and
good.
in the sense of like just blessings and stuff like that.
I love the way that handled, and it can show like if you can still how the way you raise your kid instill that level of fear, and even manage to do nothing in such a high like stake situation, then you're raising your kid right. So make your kids afraid of you.
No, but it's just funny because it's so weird how that worked, how the universe works. Where I remember him warning me so much, like, "Yo, don't take the car. Not allowed to take the car." And in the back of my head, I'm the mischievous, oldest son, right? I'm like, I'm taking the car. I'm 17 years old now. I gotta drive myself, right? So, and then that happened, but it was a lesson nonetheless. But anyway, I think we're at the point of wrapping this episode up. Khurram, any final words before we wrap up?
Man, I just gotta say it's nice to have Kenny Bhullar join us halfway through this, because this conversation was getting a little out of hand. Me and Omid together, that's a Ganda Bacha squad, We go a little crazy without Kenny. Kenny is the one who changes up the scene. So it's nice to have you here, Kenny. It's nice to have you guys here as well, tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the conversations, the different perspectives. And we will actually, if you guys got any crazy stories, comment it below. If you are vibing with Daniel Smith, comment below. If you're against, comment below.
If you're a Satanist, comment below.
If you're a hater, definitely comment below so I can comment back on that bitch. But much love to everybody, including the haters.
Yeah, and I know a lot of y'all wanted more of Kenny. It's okay, guys. Next week we have another episode. I'm sure Kenny will be here for the full episode. So that's a wrap. Take care, y'all. We'll see y'all next week.